Let me tell you something about getting old that nobody really prepares you for. People will tell you to enjoy retirement, take care of your health, spend time with your family, and make the most of your golden years. And all of that is good advice. But there are some things that come with age that people don't talk about very much. They are not always serious illnesses or dramatic changes. Sometimes they're small, uncomfortable things that slowly appear in your everyday life. You notice that you get tired sooner. You forget a name you have known for 30 years. You wake up at 3 in the morning for no reason. You get irritated over something that would never have bothered you when you were younger. And one day, you realize that your body doesn't quite cooperate with you the way it used to. I've lived long enough to experience many of these things myself, and I want to talk about them honestly today. Not to frighten you, and certainly not to make you feel old. Quite the opposite. I want you to understand that many of these changes are part of the journey, and knowing what to expect can make them much easier to handle. So today, let's talk about 12 unpleasant things seniors experience as they age that nobody tells you about. And more importantly, let's talk about what you can actually do about them. Number 1, the loss of independence. This was one of the hardest lessons for me personally. When you're young, you don't think twice about carrying your own groceries, fixing something around the house, driving somewhere, climbing a ladder, or simply getting up and doing whatever needs to be done. You make your own decisions and solve your own problems. Then slowly, some things become harder. Perhaps your knees aren't as steady as they once were. Your eyesight isn't quite as sharp, or you simply don't have the energy to spend 3 hours doing a job that used to take you 30 minutes, and sometimes someone offers to help you. I remember how uncomfortable that made me feel. At first, I thought accepting help meant I wasn't capable anymore, but I've learned something with age. Independence isn't doing everything by yourself. Independence is being able to make choices about how you want to live your life. Sometimes protecting that independence means accepting help with the things that no longer need to be your responsibility. Let your daughter carry the heavy bags. Let your son fix that broken shelf. Hire somebody to clean the house if you can afford it. Ask a friend for a ride when driving at night no longer feels comfortable. There is dignity in accepting help. You don't become less of a person because somebody gives you a hand. In fact, sometimes asking for help is one of the strongest things an older person can do, because it allows you to save your energy for the people and activities that truly matter. And once you start making those adjustments, you may notice another change that catches many older people by surprise. Number 2, sudden exhaustion. There was a time in my life when I could work all day, come home, eat dinner, and still have enough energy to go somewhere in the evening. These days, if I spend the morning doing several errands, I know I may need a quiet afternoon. Sometimes even simple things can leave you tired. Cooking a meal, cleaning the kitchen, walking around a large store, or spending a few hours with people can take more out of you than you expect. At first, you may become frustrated with yourself. You may think, "What's wrong with me? I used to be able to do this." But your body changes with time, and you have to learn to work with it rather than constantly fighting against it. I've become much better at pacing myself. I don't try to finish every chore in one burst anymore. I take breaks. I sit down when I need to sit down. I drink water throughout the day. I eat smaller, balanced meals instead of filling myself until I'm sluggish. And if my body tells me it needs a rest, I listen. Rest isn't laziness. At this age, rest is maintenance. Of course, if your tiredness is sudden, severe, or unusual for you, don't simply blame it on getting older. Talk to your doctor and make sure there isn't an underlying problem. But ordinary changes in energy are something many of us have to learn to accept without feeling ashamed of them. Now, something else happens when your energy changes, and your body doesn't burn calories the way it once did. Number 3, unexpected weight gain. This one can be especially frustrating because you may look at your daily routine and think, "I'm not eating that differently. I'm still walking. Why is my waist getting bigger?" Well, aging can change the way your body uses energy, and losing muscle over time can also affect your metabolism. I remember reaching an age when clothes that had fit me comfortably for years suddenly became tighter around the middle. It was tempting to go on some extreme diet and try to fix everything in a few weeks. But I've learned that drastic solutions rarely make sense for older adults. What matters more is consistency. Eat food that gives your body something useful: vegetables, fruits, lean sources of protein, whole grains, and other nourishing foods that work for you. Pay attention to portions because your body may simply need fewer calories than it did 20 or 30 years ago. And keep moving. You don't need to punish yourself in a gym. A regular walk can be valuable. Simple strength exercises can help you maintain muscle, and maintaining muscle becomes increasingly important as you get older. The goal isn't to look 20 again. The goal is to stay strong enough to carry your groceries, get out of a chair, climb your stairs, and enjoy your daily life. And speaking of enjoying daily life, there is another change that can quietly take that enjoyment away if you don't pay attention to it. Number 4. Becoming more sensitive to heat and cold. I never thought much about temperature when I was younger. If it was cold, I put on a jacket. If it was hot, I opened a window. Simple. But as I've gotten older, I've noticed that temperatures that once felt perfectly comfortable can suddenly feel unpleasant. A summer afternoon can feel exhausting, while a cool evening can make your hands and feet feel much colder than expected. I've learned not to fight this. I dress in layers now. I keep a sweater nearby. In hot weather, I make sure I have water and avoid staying outside during the hottest part of the day. At home, I adjust the temperature instead of trying to prove that I can tolerate discomfort. These may sound like little things, but comfort matters more than pride when you're older, and extreme heat or cold can be more dangerous for older adults. So, it's wise to take those conditions seriously rather than simply saying, "I've been through worse." There is no prize for suffering through an uncomfortable room. Then there is something that can be even more frustrating, because it affects one of the things we use every day without thinking about it. Number 5. Declining mobility. One day you notice that bending down to tie your shoes isn't as easy. Another day you realize you don't walk as quickly as you once did. Getting up from a low chair takes more effort. You become more careful on stairs. These changes can make you feel as though your world is becoming smaller. But this is where I strongly believe we have to keep doing what we safely can. Movement is one of those things where a little consistency can matter enormously. Gentle stretching can help keep your joints moving. Walking can help maintain endurance. Simple strength exercises can support your legs and core. Some people enjoy yoga or water exercises because they are gentler on the joints. You don't have to become an athlete. You simply want to keep telling your body, I still need you to move. Start slowly, respect pain, and talk with a healthcare professional if you're unsure what exercises are appropriate for you. The worst thing is not moving because you're afraid of becoming less mobile. The goal is safe movement repeated regularly so that your body has a reason to remain capable. And once your movement, energy, and daily routines begin changing, another problem can quietly appear at night. Number 6. Difficulty sleeping. I've had nights when I went to bed tired, expecting to sleep like a stone, only to find myself staring at the ceiling a few hours later. You wake up, look at the clock, and wonder why you're awake when the whole house is quiet. Sometimes you fall back asleep. Sometimes you don't. Then the next morning arrives, and everything feels harder. Sleeps can change as we get older for many reasons, including stress, physical discomfort, medications, and changes in our natural sleep patterns. What has helped me most is keeping my routine simple and consistent. I try to go to bed and wake up around the same time. I avoid too much caffeine later in the day. I keep the bedroom comfortable, dark, and quiet. Before bed, I try to slow my mind down instead of carrying the whole day's worries into the bedroom. Sometimes a few minutes of calm breathing or gentle stretching helps. And if sleep problems become persistent, don't simply accept them as something you must suffer through because you're old. Talk to your doctor. There may be something treatable behind the problem. These are the kinds of changes nobody puts in the retirement brochure. But after living through them myself, I've learned that growing older isn't about pretending these things aren't happening. It's about noticing them, adapting, and refusing to let them take away more of your life than they have to. And there are still several other changes we need to talk about, because some of the hardest ones aren't physical at all. They affect the way we think, remember, connect with people, and even react emotionally. Those lessons took me many years to understand, and they're just as important as everything we've talked about so far. And perhaps the first thing that begins to change inside your mind is something very simple, but surprisingly uncomfortable. Number 7. Forgetting names and important details. I have to smile when I talk about this one, because I've had moments where somebody walks up to me, and I know I've known that person for years. I recognize the face. I remember where we met. I remember stories we've shared. But for the life of me, I cannot remember the person's name. And there I am standing there hoping the name will suddenly come back to me before I have to say something. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. When it doesn't, I simply ask. And I've learned not to be embarrassed by it. We put so much pressure on ourselves to remember everything perfectly. But memory isn't a machine. And getting older doesn't mean you've suddenly lost your intelligence. One useful thing I've started doing is writing things down. If I meet someone new, I may make a little note of their name and something I learned about them. If I have an appointment or an important task, I put it in my phone immediately. These little systems take some of the pressure off your memory. And please don't be afraid to say, "I'm sorry, remind me of your name." Most decent people won't think anything bad of you. In fact, they may be relieved because they've forgotten a name themselves. What matters is that you continue caring about people and staying engaged with the world around you. But memory isn't the only thing that can feel different. Sometimes you can sit down to do something you have loved for decades and suddenly realize your mind doesn't stay with it the way it used to. Number 8. Losing some concentration and focus. I used to be able to sit down with a book and disappear into it for hours. These days I can read several pages and suddenly realize that I've been looking at the same paragraph without taking in a word. Maybe a noise outside distracted me. Maybe I started thinking about something else. Maybe my mind simply isn't as patient as it once was. And yes, that can be frustrating. But instead of getting angry with myself, I've learned to adjust. I read for shorter periods. I take a break and come back later. I enjoy crossword puzzles, simple brain games, learning something new, and having conversations that make me think. You don't have to spend your entire day doing complicated mental exercises. Even learning a new recipe, trying a new hobby, reading about a subject you've never explored, or learning a few words in another language can give your brain something new to work with. And never forget the basics. Sleep, physical activity, good nutrition, and staying socially connected all matter to how well we think and concentrate. If you notice a major or rapidly worsening change in your memory or thinking, though, that's something to discuss with a healthcare professional. We should never assume every serious change is simply old age. Now, while some of us become quieter with age, there are others who notice something completely different happening. Number 9. Becoming more irritable or short-tempered. I have to admit, this one humbled me. There were times when something small would bother me far more than it deserved. A delayed delivery, somebody moving too slowly in front of me, a phone call at the wrong moment, or some little inconvenience that would have rolled off my back years ago suddenly felt like a personal attack. And afterward I'd think, why did I react like that? Aging brings changes, but it also brings losses, uncertainty, physical discomfort, and frustrations that younger people may not always understand. When you're tired or uncomfortable, your patience can become shorter. But that doesn't mean you're powerless over your emotions. I've found that simply pausing can make a remarkable difference. When I feel irritation rising, I try not to answer immediately. I take a few slow breaths. Sometimes I walk away for a moment. Sometimes I remind myself that the problem will probably mean very little tomorrow. Aging isn't about winning a battle against time. It's about learning to live well within the time we have. I've also found gratitude to be surprisingly powerful. At the end of the day, I try to remember a few simple things that went right. A good cup of coffee, a pleasant conversation, a sunny morning, somebody checking in on me. These things may sound small, but life is made of small things. And when you start noticing them, the little annoyances don't seem quite so enormous. Of course, even the calmest person can struggle emotionally when the people around them begin to disappear from their everyday life. Number 10. Loneliness and a shrinking social circle. This may be one of the most painful parts of growing older, because it isn't always something you can fix with a simple exercise or a better routine. Friends move away. Some become too sick to go out. Some pass away. Children become busy with their own families and responsibilities. You may suddenly look around and realize that the people you used to see every week aren't part of your daily life anymore. I've experienced that emptiness myself. There are places I used to go where I can still picture the people sitting around the table laughing and talking. Those people aren't there anymore, and pretending that doesn't hurt would be dishonest. But loneliness doesn't mean you have to give up on connection. Sometimes you have to become more intentional about it. Call an old friend instead of waiting for them to call you. Join a community group. Go to a library event, a walking group, a gardening club, a place of worship if that's meaningful to you, or simply find people who share one of your interests. And if leaving home is difficult, technology can help. A video call may never replace sitting across from someone at a kitchen table, but it is still a human connection. You don't need 50 friends. Sometimes one good conversation can change an entire afternoon. At this stage of life, quality matters far more than quantity. And when your social circle becomes smaller, you may notice another change that affects the way you experience conversations and the world around you. Number 11. Changes in vision and hearing. I remember the first time I realized I couldn't read something as easily as I once could. I held it farther away, then closer, then farther away again, pretending I was simply trying to find the right angle. Eventually, I admitted that my eyes had changed. Hearing can be similar. You may find yourself asking people to repeat themselves, especially when several people are talking at once. You might laugh along with a conversation because you don't want anyone to know you missed what was said. Please don't do that to yourself. There is no shame in needing glasses, better lighting, hearing aids, or other assistive devices. These tools aren't signs that you failed. They're tools that help you remain part of the world. Get your eyes checked. Get your hearing checked. If something changes, address it instead of quietly withdrawing from social situations because conversations have become difficult. I've seen older people become isolated simply because they couldn't hear well in a noisy restaurant and became embarrassed about asking people to repeat themselves. That's a terrible price to pay for something that may be manageable. Your senses may change, but your desire to connect doesn't have to disappear with them. And there is one more part of the body that can sometimes make everyday life feel unexpectedly different. Number 12. Needing more medical appointments and health monitoring. As we get older, the calendar can begin to look like it belongs to the doctor's office. Blood pressure checks, blood tests, routine screenings, medication reviews, eye appointments, dental visits, and all the little things that seem to keep appearing. Sometimes you may wonder, do I really have to go to another appointment? Well, I understand that feeling, but I've changed the way I look at it. These appointments aren't necessarily evidence that you're falling apart. In many cases, they're simply part of being proactive. Finding a problem early can give you more choices than discovering it after it has become serious. What helped me was keeping everything organized. I use reminders. I keep a list of medications and questions. If I notice a new symptom or something unusual, I write it down instead of trusting myself to remember it during the appointment. And I try not to be afraid of asking questions. Your health belongs to you, and you have every right to understand what is happening. When I look back at all 12 of these things, I realize that none of them tells the whole story of aging. Forgetting a name doesn't mean you've lost your wisdom. Getting tired doesn't mean your life is over. Needing help doesn't mean you've lost your dignity. Gaining a little weight doesn't mean you've failed. Sleeping poorly doesn't mean you have to accept misery. Losing friends doesn't mean you can never make new ones. Needing glasses or hearing aids doesn't mean the world is closing around you. And going to the doctor more often doesn't mean you should spend your remaining years worrying about your health every minute of every day. The truth is, growing older requires a different kind of strength. When you're young, strength often means pushing harder, going faster, and doing everything yourself. As you get older, strength can mean something very different. It can mean knowing when to rest. It can mean asking for help before you truly need it. It can mean accepting that your body has changed without becoming angry at it. It can mean calling somebody when you're lonely, instead of waiting for them to notice. It can mean putting your pride aside and wearing the glasses, using the hearing aid, taking the walking stick, or accepting the helping hand that allows you to keep doing the things you love. I've learned that aging isn't about winning a battle against time. None of us can do that. It's about learning how to live well within the time we've been given. Some days will be easier than others. Some mornings you'll wake up feeling strong, and other mornings you'll wonder where all your energy went. That's okay. Don't judge your entire life by one difficult day. Strength in old age isn't pushing harder. It's knowing when to rest and when to ask for help. And if you're listening to me today and you've been experiencing some of these changes, I want you to know something very important. You are not alone. There are millions of older people around the world quietly going through the same adjustments, wondering whether what they're experiencing is normal, feeling embarrassed about asking for help, or thinking they're the only ones whose lives have changed this way. You're not the only one. Talk to people. Stay curious. Keep moving in whatever way is safe for you. Keep your friendships alive. Learn something new. Laugh when you can. Rest when you need to. And when something doesn't feel right, don't be afraid to ask a qualified professional about it. We don't get to choose every change that comes with age, but we can choose how we respond to many of them. That to me is one of the great privileges of growing old. You become less interested in proving yourself and more interested in living honestly. You begin to understand that a peaceful afternoon can be more valuable than a busy schedule. A good conversation can be worth more than an expensive possession, and having the freedom to wake up, make yourself a cup of coffee, look out the window, and know that you're still here, that can be a beautiful thing. So, my friend, if you've made it this far with me, thank you. Truly, thank you for spending some of your time here, for listening to an old man talk about the things I've learned the hard way, and for being willing to have an honest conversation about growing older. I hope something I said today made you feel understood, encouraged you to take better care of yourself, or simply reminded you that you're not walking this road alone. Take care of yourself. Be patient with your body. Stay close to the people who matter, and don't be too hard on yourself when life changes. We're all learning as we go. Thank you so much for being here with me today. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can leave a comment and tell me which of these changes you've experienced yourself. I'd genuinely love to hear your story. And if you think someone you care about needs to hear this, share it with them. If this honest conversation helped you feel understood, hit that like button and subscribe to Winds of Thought for more wisdom that helps you navigate every stage of life.